Hi, this is Frederick from the techno label Detroit Berlin, and today we're going to take a look at the A-126-2, the frequency shifter from Doepfer. This module was sent to me by Alex Vier from Germany, distributor from Doepfer, and yeah, I had a look at the module. I tested it a couple of weeks. So what is a frequency shifter? Like the name suggests, it shifts the frequency by a certain amount. The certain amount you adjust with the frequency knob, and it's the same across the whole spectrum. So if you input a 100 Hz signal and you shift it by 100 Hz, the output will be 200 Hz. When you insert a signal that is 1000 Hz, the output will be 1100 Hz, 1100 Hz. So it stays the same. And with this frequency shifter you have a mix knob which combines the upshift with the downshift. So if you put it in upshift, the signal will only be upshifted by a certain amount that you adjust with the frequency knob. And when you push the mix all the way down, it will downshift the signal. Like if you do a shift of 100 Hz or 200 Hz, when you put it in upshift, it will add that 200 Hz, and when you put it in downshift, it will deduct the 200 Hz. And when you do a mix, it will both add and deduct at the same time, and you get more like a more rich signal. You get more up and down shifted tones with your initial signal that will be frequency shifted. So what is behind the screens is a little bit complex. At least I think it's pretty complex what goes on behind the screens. It works with sines and cosines, a little bit like a ring modulator, but this works with cosines that are 90 degrees shifted from the normal sine. A ring modulator, it always gets this certain ring in the in the sound, therefore it's called a ring modulator. That is a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit static. It makes the sound in many occasions more ugly, as I would call it. And a frequency shifter, it stays more musically, and you can make a variety of sounds, from bells to really weird sounding things. Let's maybe go over the module and explain the patch. So the patch is actually the North drum routed into the frequency shifter, and also routed directly into the Moog matriarch. So I can mix that dry signal with the wet frequency shifted signal. The nice thing about this frequency shifter is that you get those sine and the cosine outputs normalized in the module, but also you can take them, put them through distortion or a filter or some other effect, and send them back into the frequency shifter for having more options and soundscaping possibilities. You can also use other oscillators. So maybe let's just hear the frequency shifter play around a little bit, then I will unplug all the cables and go over the module step by step, I might put it in the timestamps. So with the Moog Matriarch, the patch I have here, I've got 2 oscillators. One is synced and one is just a pulse that is modulated by an LFO going at audio rate. So I can actually enrich the sound. Then I got the Nord drum, which is modulated by the analog trigger sequencer, and the quantized and stored voltages from Doepfer are actually playing around with the start and the end point of the sequence. So that's going to the Nord drum. Let's turn that down, and the Nord drum is also going directly into the frequency shifter. And we get these weird bit crunchy, almost bit crunchy sounds. And why are those sounds a little bit crunchy? Because I took those sines and cosines and put them through a wave multiplier and a distortion wave shaper. I did an episode on the wave multiplier. Please look that up if you're interested, and I will probably do a distortion wave shaper episode in the near future. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So let's make it a little bit more gentle, perhaps. And the sequence is also controlling the frequency of the pitch of the, is controlling the frequency of the frequency shifter. And I've got it in open mode, and I'm also putting a signal to the VCA, the external CV control of the VCA, which is actually a clock division of the clock tempo of this patch. So when I unplug it, you get like a less staccato effect. It's more like, yeah, the drum sounds of the Nord drum, which is going totally crazy because I am triggering it really randomly. So I make it much more staccato by using a clock division and just sending a pulse to that VCA input. I can also do it by an envelope. So it's actually a VCA inside of this unit, which is really handy. Okay, you got a level. You got a coarse control and a fine control. This one is a fine control, but with an internal jumper you can twist that and make this the fine control and this the coarse. So the CV control from the mix. So that can be controlled via CV, which is also really handy. You can control a lot, and it's a pretty small module, so it might not be cheap. It's actually pretty expensive for Doepfer standards, but it's really, really nice and pretty complex. But yeah, it's complex on the inside, but if you just look at the panel, let's quickly go over all the controls of the frequency shifter, the A-126-2 from Doepfer. Let's go from top to bottom, from left to right. We have the frequency control, which is the coarse control of the frequency shift. Then we got the fine control of the frequency shift, and via a jumper on the back you can actually switch these two so that the big knob becomes the fine tuning and the small one the coarse control. Then you got the mix. All the way to the left is the downshift, and it mixes into the upshift all the way to the right. And in the middle, of course, it's 50-50 up and downshift. So if you have a frequency shift of 200 Hertz, take for instance 200 Hertz, all the way to the right is the upshift. So it adds that 200 Hertz frequency. Then it mixes into the 200 Hertz downshift and everything in between. So in the middle you have both the mix of the up and the downshift, so that creates a more richer tone. Then you have a knob which is an attenuator of the frequency control voltage input. With a control voltage you can control the frequency, and then you got the envelope follower, or just put the VCA all the way to the right in the most open position, or any mix in between. So it opens the VCA when it receives sound, and all the way to the right it just stays open. And yeah, everywhere in the middle it's a little bit of a mix, so you can control that. Then you got the level control of the sound coming in, so it's actually, it can drive the signal quite a bit. Then you got the mix CV, so it's the CV input, an attenuator for controlling the mix knob via CV. Then we get to the frequency control voltage input, which relates to the knob we discussed earlier. Then the most important one, I think, is the audio in. Without anything plugged in into the audio in and audio out, there is no sound, no frequency shifting at all. It's in true bypass. Sorry for joking, but yeah, you got the audio in and below the audio output. Then you got the sine output, so the sine output of the frequency shifter, which you can route to an effect, to a filter, to distortion, wave shaper, any kind of module you can route it to. You can route it back into the module, and it's normalized, so the sine input is receiving the signal from the sine output anyway, so otherwise it wouldn't work. At the bottom you got the cosine output, cosine input. It works in the same manner, so it is normalized. And then you got the mix CV input, which relates to this knob, which is the attenuator like discussed before. And then you got the VCA external CV, so you can use a control voltage to open up the VCA that's built into the frequency shifter. And this knob, it doesn't do anything, I think, when plug in something into the VCA external CV input. If you route a sequence to the VCA input, then the volume will rise accordingly to the sequence. And when you route an ADSR, it will act like a normal VCA. It will open up with the slope of the ADSR or AD envelope, or just put a gate to there to directly open it up and close it up. So yeah, that's a quick overview of what those knobs and inputs do. So now I have the Nord drum connected to the frequency shifter, which is routed to the external input on the Moog Matriarch. And then I'm also turning the effects off. So let's Let's play around. So this is the frequency shifted sound, and let's also take a quick look at the normal sound. So this one is the original sound. And this is a mix of the two sounds. And the mix is in the middle position, so it both adds and detracts the frequency. So let's only put it in the up position, only in down position, middle position. So that's a combination. With an LFO, let's modulate the mix input. It creates a little bit of modulation and the sound gets more interesting. And if it gets modulated by an audio signal, that's also very nice, I would say. I will modulate the pitch by taking the envelope out of the external input envelope follower from Doepfer, which I use to route the North drum into the frequency shifter. So let's take that envelope follower signal and let's put it in the frequency control voltage input, and let's turn it up. Which really sounds cool, I would say. Maybe let's do another drum patch. Okay, so I made another drum patch with the grids from Mutable Instruments, sending it through the North drum. And I will mention I'm using the dual trigger delay from Doepfer because the North drum is very sensitive to double triggers, and when I just put the dual trigger delay in between a trigger sequencer and the North drum, that solves the problem, and I will only get single triggers instead of having double triggers when I only want a single trigger. So that's a really nice module to solve some issues and to delay triggers, create nice swing rhythms. Adding the original sounds. Now, the wave multiplier on the cosine output, going back in. And now let's try the distortion. And we're back to the original dry signal from the Nord drum. You can shift the frequency of rhythmical stuff, and that works really well, especially when using envelope followers. And I'm not really sequencing a lot other than the drum machine itself by the mutable instrument grids. Yeah, I'm just modulating with envelope followers and with LFOs, the frequency shifter from Doepfer, and that works great. But now let's make another patch. I have the, let's see, maybe just the 4 oscillators of the Moog Matriarch going into the frequency shifter. Maybe let's just start with 1 oscillator going into the frequency shifter, then I'm passing it to the O-tool, the oscilloscope, and back into the Moog Matriarch. Let's just open that filter all the way up. And let's see what sound I'm getting from this patch. This is pretty cool. I can use the pitch of my keyboard to actually control the frequency. Pretty nice, I would say. I can also, let's see, let's create a sequence or just take a sequence out of this and maybe slow it down. Let's add an oscillator. And then I think it really gets interesting, because with a more complex sound you get nicer frequency shifting, in my opinion. And it sounds a little bit bell-like. Only downshifting. Let's add some delay. Which makes it always sound nicer. Give it some release. Okay, sounds pretty nice. Sounds interesting, that's the least you can say. And to my feeling, it still sounds musical in a certain way. When you do this with a ring modulator, it really gets dissonant and not really pretty. This is on the verge of weird and pretty at the same time. Of course, this is a simple patch I just came up with. I can probably take it a lot further and a lot more harmonically suited. using the filter of the Matriarch, adding a little bit of resonance. It makes it, in my opinion, really shine. To my opinion, the sounds you can generate with a frequency shifter are otherworldly sounds from like outer space. It can be the soundtrack to a science fiction movie. It's a really nice module. You got plenty of CV controls, you have plenty of options to extract a signal, put an effect on it and send it back into the frequency shifter to have different flavors of frequency shifting, to have it more complex, more soundscapeable. It's a pretty nice module. It's pretty expensive to my opinion, but the sounds you can generate, I don't know if you can use other cheaper modules to get the same sound. I don't think so. I would highly advise the frequency shifter because it's a special module that doesn't take too much space. You can make bellish sounds, you can make really weird atmospheres. I haven't used it with drones, but I think that would be amazing. You can run vocals through it and create some robotic voices with that, or just any other instrument, drum machines, you call it. It has an envelope follower to control the volume, and it's an amazing module, I would say. It kind of resembles a little bit the Moog frequency shifter, and I think this one is really nice. So yeah, give it a try, give it a shot. Please use my affiliate links, and give this video a like. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and I have a Patreon page. If you really want to support me, you can join me on my Patreon page, and I can keep doing these reviews of those wonderful Doepfer modules and other modules, maybe also in the future. So give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope I see you soon. Bye bye.